Good morning, Coach. We'll begin with Mike Kliss of 9 News. Go ahead, Mike.
Yes, Sean, just looking back on the defense where they scored on 7 straight possessions, how much was that, Lamar is one of a kind, and how much was it that, some things on defensively you didn't get done?
Yeah, in fairness to the question, I would say probably a little both. The extended plays, he does that really well, especially extending right. He uses a real strong, stiff arm. And then he made some plays from the pocket, and they ran the ball pretty well. There weren't a lot of quarterback designed runs. When we did the research, when he's missed Wednesday and Thursday, that's happened 2 other times. They're a little less apt to run him on the design runs. So we saw a little bit more conventional style offense, but nonetheless, it was a combination.
Andrew Mason, the Fan.
Hey, Sean, Cortland was saying that sometimes in a learning curve, you need a, quote, stove is hot, don't touch it moment to kind of learn that you have to capitalize on opportunities. So in your experience, how can moments like this and games like this lead to eventual success?
Well, I think they can. I mean, I think each week there are these learning experiences we have, not only as coaches, but as players, as teams. And, there's some games where you're going to play more aggressively because you feel like that's what's necessary to win. Yesterday, obviously, there was a handful of 4th downs that we wanted to be somewhat aggressive. And so, yeah, look, I think that, that first half, when you look at the final minute and a half, that was significant. And obviously put us in a much different position coming out with them starting with the ball. And that gets back to that margin for error that we have to at least be aware of and understand.
Parker Gabriel, the Denver Post.
Yeah, hey, Sean, I was going to ask you about that offensive sequence right before you kick the field goal. Obviously you're trying to score a touchdown, but are you also trying to work the clock in that scenario, given that it's at 120 or a little below?
I'm going to be honest with you. So here's one thing that I think is passed around a lot. I know how to score field goals slow, but when people talk about scoring touchdowns slow, I don't understand it. And it's always like, I understand using the clock. The only time I understand scoring touchdowns slow is when it becomes goal to go. All right. But if it's not goal to go, I don't know how to score slow touchdowns. And so, obviously, I know how to milk the clock and kick a later field goal, get inside the 10, goal to go. But outside the 10, I still haven't seen the analytics on that. I don't think they exist really. So I'm mindful of the time, but we're trying to score.
Eric DeLalla, DenverBroncos.com.
Coach, in that first half, 3 drives of at least 50 yards and 3 first downs on each of those drives. Just curious, when you went back and looked at the film, what did you see that was working on those possessions? I know they didn't all end in points, but what positives can you take from that offensive output in the first half?
Yeah, I think the one thing is the ball went underneath sometimes. We got a handful of snaps to cover 2, so it came under the coverage sometimes. We advanced it. We had some positive runs early on. And I would say, by and large, though, we were efficient, reading the coverage correctly. And we got obviously a lot of zone. That's what they like to play, and a little bit more 2-high zone.
Zach Stevens, DNVR.
Coach, with the trade deadline tomorrow, do you expect to be involved in some deals? And what will the next 24 hours be like for you and George?
The next 24 hours for me will be just like last Monday or the following Monday or the Monday prior. It's going to be, putting to bed the game we just played, and then the preparation beginning on Kansas City. And in the meantime, George and his staff will, I'm sure they'll get there's always these last minute calls either way. George will keep me abreast. He'll walk in here if he thinks it's something significant. But honestly, the focus is on the guys in this building right here. Superman's not walking in. My brother's the worst at this. You ready? He's the worst at free agency, and he's the worst at the trade deadline. And he just wants to see action. And then right after the action takes place, he never goes back and reflects and says, well, that was a bad signing or that was a bad trade. But and I say that, I kid him. But I think that there's so much more that goes into it relative to whether you're trading a player or acquiring a player. Contracts go into it, vision goes into it, locker room goes in. There's a lot of details that go into that. And yeah, so to answer your question fairly, I'm sitting here with the numbers right now with Kansas City, depth chart, injury report, scouting report, kind of finished up on Baltimore. Our players are in meetings on Baltimore, and that's where we're at.
Marty Stapleton, Associated Press.
Hey, Sean, we're at about the halfway point of the season. I'm curious, in your estimation, what are the areas of growth you need to see down the stretch here for this season to be a success?
Great question. Actually, at halftime this past weekend, we were right at halftime of the season, I believe. And so I think this. I think back to one important statistic, and that deals with the running game. And I think the I would say consistency of us offensively rushing the football efficiently, our continued success that we've had prior to yesterday at defending the run is going to be vital to this team winning. We're -1 right now in the turnover battle. If we're having that discussion towards the end of the season, that's not going to be good. So that it has to be something in our favor. And so I start with those two things off the top of my head, and understanding our margin for error relative to the giveaway takeaway ratio. Now, when your program is further along and you get to a spot, we did this study the other day. It was pretty interesting. You look at the elite teams in our history. Who are the best teams at surviving minus turnovers? And one of the Broncos, I think the 15 Broncos team was one of the teams listed. The certainly 22 Chiefs. These teams, they won 80% of their games when they were minus in the giveaway takeaway. And so obviously their margin for error was much different. And so I think of the rushing game, both offensively and defensively. I think certainly our return units in the kicking game with Marvin and what we're trying to do from a punt return standpoint, and then us being able to defend the run. If we're having problems defending the run or we're having problems and not having the ability to slow the game down, play it on our terms, I think it's going to be challenging for us to accomplish our goals.
Rank, the Denver Post.
In that regard, Coach, is there any chance that we'd see more of Estime moving forward? I know protecting the ball is part of this, but any chance then as you look at the running game moving forward?
I think that's a good and fair question, and one that I think I would answer yes.
Coach, that appears to be all the questions that we have for you today.
Thank you
so much for joining.